It is a Facebook Live Friday, an all-blue preview of the UKFCU and people in between. We've got a lot to go over with you in a short amount of time. We will get to UK.
Didn't Jerry Reed sing that?
Which part?
We got a long ways to go and a short time to get there.
Watch old bandit run.
Watch old bandit run. That's right. That's right.
We have a lot of old musical minutia on this stage and to the gentleman to my right over in the weather corner. But we've got EKU at UK this Saturday. We've got high school football tonight already in week number 4. I love high school football.
I get you.
But it just goes by too darn fast.
Doesn't it, though?
I mean, last night, it's week 2. This week is week 2 of college football, but high school just like, man.
Right?
It's gone. And we will end our show today with, as we discuss Roy Kidd. The legendary, almost mythological football coach, former coach of EKU and Richmond Madison and Richmond Model and things in between. And there is Coach Kidd, and we will talk much more about him later on in the show. He has been, in case you have not heard, he has been placed in hospice care. He is at age 91, and the last time we saw him was August 12th, and Parker McKinney, the EKU quarterback, was leading the cheers for Cabot on the Hill, and even in a weakened state, Coach Kidd raised that right hand, and he was so happy to be there. But he, unfortunately, is in very much the twilight of his life, and we will talk much more about Coach Kidd in just a little bit. But it's EKU and UK this weekend, and so many storylines of friendship with Walt Wells and Mark Stoops, with proximity of EKU just a half hour down the road. So much to go through. And
Maxwell Smith, C.J. Conrad.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and then there's so many former Wildcats who are current colonels on the roster. So it's a nice little family affair this week. But let's talk about the Cats last week, winning by 30, and no one seems happy about it.
Nobody. And you know what? Credit Mark Stoops. I mean, that's what expectations do to a program, right? I mean, and he said he's not afraid of those expectations. And so, you know, a lot of that just stems from the first game, and because everything looks good when you're not playing anybody, right? I mean, and this is what, and I'm not criticizing fans, but this is what the whole process is about. You and I have talked about this before. I can't tell you the number of people that were just certain that Billy Gillespie was going to be a home run, right?
Sure.
And, you know, they hadn't seen him coach. They hadn't, you know, seen him practice or anything. And so we have a body of work here, but we had not seen Devin Leary come back since he was hurt.
Irish?
Something like O'Leary. O'Leary in the O-line. That's what he needs. We had not seen him since last year when he got injured, right? He needed the luck of the Irish sometimes last week because that pocket was breaking down a little bit. You know, Liam Cohen's going to get settled in. He knew what Will Levis could do, right? I think he's kind of learning with Devin Leary. As I was sitting there up in the stands, I just thought they were working the outside of the field an awful lot. Yeah. I thought that they didn't go down the middle of the field enough. They had a big hitter to the tight end in the second half and everything. And then, you know, you're trying not to show future opponents what you got, and at the same time, you're trying to see what you got. I mean, and I just thought there in the second half, you know, it's like, okay, it's only the first game. You know, you don't want to wear the kid out. But, I mean, just give it to Ray Davis as much as you can, right?
I think Ray Davis and Juton McClain certainly need to get some touches, and that's what Mark Stoops had mentioned going into that last drive. Kentucky had the ball for 11 second-half plays.
Right.
And now, certainly there are some reasons why you have a scoop and a score. You have a 99-yard kickoff return for touchdown. So there are some asterisks you can put on that second half, which would have allowed UK more offensive touches. But golly, the yeoman's effort by the defense to be out there for 38 minutes on a hot day, the opening day, when and I was surprised we did not see many cramps.
And I thought, and that's a credit to the training staff, the nutrition staff, and everything. I thought it was also interesting. I thought at the time, I thought, and then you go back and look at those factors you just mentioned, and I think they played a big part in the times they couldn't get off the field on third down.
Yeah, maybe. And Mark Stoops was, you know, he did not smile a lot post-game. Liam Cohen didn't smile a lot. The players didn't. Barryon Brown did because, you know, you have a 99-yard kickoff return. I think I'd smile a lot too. But no one seemed happy. And that is a credit to the program escalating.
That's a good thing, right?
because how many times have you watched, and I'm not putting Kentucky into this class yet, but how many times have you watched Nick Saban win 59-3, and with 30 seconds to go of the game, he is screaming at somebody.
Of course he is,
sure. They want perfection. No one will ever attain it, but obviously the journey to perfection is what you're striving for.
And you know you got to be better than you were against Ball State.
Yeah, you have to.
You know if you want to compete in this league, you got to be better than you were against Ball State. And the thing he said was, everybody hears that old coaching axiom about week 1 to week 2. He said, I don't know if it's true or not, but it's got to be true this week.
Yeah, and then when you look at EKU, the Colonels went on the road to Cincinnati, got embarrassed, 66-13. It was over early. It was 21-0, and people still hadn't got their seats warm yet, and it was a 90-degree day. And so they got kind of taken out. So you really don't know what EKU can do. You certainly have not seen the best of what UK can do.
Sure.
So we may see some pretty decent football on Saturday because, for whatever the reason, maybe it's the Vandy effect, I don't know. The last 2 times, totally different eras, teams, coaches, whatever. But EKU has played UK pretty darn tight.
They have.
Took them to overtime, led 16-10 late in the third quarter of the last meeting, and I know that has nothing to do with tomorrow. But sometimes things happen.
I would say to you, though, that if that happens and it's close tomorrow, that the unhappy Mark Stoops you saw last week would look like the eternal optimist compared to what he's going to look like after this game and at his Monday news conference.
Yeah, that's no question about it. It's a big game in terms of, yeah, you got to win, but it's a big game for improvement, and that's that is the line where it is drawn for tomorrow. UK will be a heavy favorite, but it is what if it's true. And Walt Wells said it was, and Stoops and everybody. It's cliche. You make your biggest jump between week 1 and week 2. So who do you think's got the bigger jump to make? Is it UK or EKU?
I was going to say, if Ray Davis makes a bigger jump, wow, watch out, right?
That kid's tough, man.
Kid loves playing at Kroger Field, right?
Yeah.
His last 2 games at Kroger Field.
Jeez, turn him off.
Teams, right? Yes. Sign him up.
Save it for later in the season,
right?
you know. But
I mean,
yeah, Ray is run. I mean, he's just letting it go, and it was good though last week to see the football fly around the field a little bit. Last year it was Kentucky was screen pass university.
Well, and they're playing with a hurt quarterback too, so and an offensive line that couldn't protect him. So I get that. I think you'll see him fine tune it. I think there will be a big jump in that Kentucky passing game this week. I just think that Liam Cohen will adjust his play calling just a little bit.
Yeah.
I think you see that Leary is still adjusting to some of those, and those are very difficult throws outside of the boundary and all that stuff and everything. And I think, and I would not be surprised if Walt Wells didn't have his guys ready for that. I think he's going to try to throw very much more in the center of the field this week.
And that is a 3 o'clock start. I'd mentioned earlier this week 3:30. I just got a little ahead of myself.
That's okay. Can I add something about this game
Always.
now? For those of you, and we always get a lot of calls, okay? So for those of you who are watching here now, so the SEC has this agreement now with everybody that even though it's football or basketball, some of the games are streamed. So you can't see it on regular television,
That's
okay?
right.
You can only stream it. The other thing is unless something's changed in the last few minutes, for those of you who are Spectrum customers, there is that national dispute going on between Spectrum and ESPN.
Yeah.
And so you may not be able to stream it either unless, I don't know if you can get it on, I think you can get it on UK, or you can get the radio call on UKathletics.com, on the Kentucky Football Facebook page, and on the UK Sports Network page. So, you know, when that happens, you know, it's not anybody around here. It's not. It's a national. It's 2 national things they're caught in. Number one is the interesting thing is the SEC is making all kinds of money from the ESPN contract with the SEC network. Yet, the fact that it's being streamed, some people may not be able to see it because of a dispute with ESPN and Spectrum. And just not to get down in the weeds, but the way it works is there are cable entities and others that pay X amount of money to get WKYT programming.
Right.
They pay CBS money to get CBS programming, so on and so forth, and they've reached an impasse about what they're going to do. So
great time to do it too, right when the season starts. You know, usually you see labor disputes resolved or any dispute resolved right before the season starts.
You mean like Joe Burrow?
I don't know what you're talking about.
How about that? Love that timing.
But that is a good segue. UK and EKU tomorrow at 3, and you'll see it on the SEC Plus on the streaming. So we'll see what happens. And let's just talk about Joe Burrow.
Yep.
Last night about 9 o'clock, 9:30, something like that, we get the word 5-year, $275 million contract extension, the richest contract in the NFL. And
$55 million a year.
Who would have ever thought it would happen in Cincinnati, not New York, not LA, not Miami, Chicago, Dallas. It's in Cincinnati. Who says the Bengals don't spend money?
They do spend money. And
that much money.
And then the really interesting thing is, as much of a hero as this guy is and everything, could you imagine if Urban Meyer had made a different quarterback decision or something, and he was up there at Ohio State instead of going down to LSU and leading them to a national championship? I think it was Urban, right?
But just think of the talent that's at Ohio State and Ohio when Joe Burrow leaves, wins a national title. See, that is the success story of the transfer portal and people leaving for hopefully greener
And that
pastures.
was before there was a portal.
And
He just transferred.
Before. He's like, I just got to go.
Pre-portal.
Now, that he is, if you're playing the immaculate grid, Joe Burrow would be the 0.06% answer because it doesn't happen every day.
Right.
But when it does, it's a great success story. So you're going to see Joe Burrow in black and orange for a while to come now. And he is the future of the Bengals. And if he can do what he has done and certainly get better at what he's done just in the first 3 or 4 years, Lord have mercy, the Bengals, dare I say.
Bengals and Browns, Sunday afternoon, right here on WKYT.
Tonight, we've got high school football. One of the greatest weeks I can think of just off the top of my head. In local terms, Scott County is at Boyle County. Scott County is number 1 in Class 5A. Boyle County is number 1 in Class 4A.
Oh, wow.
You've got Bryan Station and Ballard. Ballard is ranked 6th in 6A. Bryan Station 7th. Raceland Pikeville, a rematch of last year's Class A title. They are
right.
1 and 2.
Wow.
I mean, we've got games everywhere. LCA goes to Cal, not Cal, Christian Academy of Louisville. 3A state champs. Christian Academy is number 1 in 3A, and 2A, LCA is number 2, 4 voting points out of number 1. So, I mean, we've got some heavyweight showdowns tonight on Game Time. Cannot wait. Now, let's talk about Roy Kidd.
Yep.
This man is a Corbin native, and he has made a name for himself in this state in ways no one could ever have imagined when he was at Richmond Model, Richmond Madison, spent a year at Morehead State as an assistant coach, came to EKU as an assistant in '63, took over the Colonel's program in '64, 25 winning seasons, straight winning seasons, 2 national titles, runner-up appearances on 2 occasions, semifinals on several more opportunities. 314 wins, halls of fame all over the place. No one could ever imagine a 39-year career like that man has had. And as we mentioned earlier, if you're just joining us or didn't know what happened earlier in the week, he has been placed in hospice care. And Roy Kidd is the greatest college football coach this state has ever produced. Yes, Bear Bryant did coach at UK, but he had a cup of coffee in this Commonwealth compared to what Roy Kidd has done.
Right. You know, the coaching achievements, when there was some turnover over at UK, there was
look at Teddy.
There was a lot. Jack Eisen there in the foreground. There was a lot of conversation from a lot of folks about whether or not he was somebody that UK should take a look at.
That's right.
But besides that, I mean. That couple, they're just, but besides that, they are some of the nicest people on the planet. I'm telling you, we would go down, and most of the time, Dick would go down to EKU and get the interviews for us and everything. Golly, that is Jim Donnan at Marshall in that picture.
How about that?
But Roy always had time for people.
Sure.
He always had time for people in his own community. He always had time for other coaches. But he was one of the funnest guys in the world to be around. You're not much of a golfer, but I mean, if you played around the golf with him, I mean, you were sore afterwards because you were laughing so hard. And he was competitive too now. I mean, just an amazing guy. And for him to do what he did, at the time he retired, he was, I think, third among active coaches.
Bowden and Paterno.
That's right. That's right.
That's correct.
And I want to say, if I'm right about this, there's his son Mark in the background right there in the glasses, who we worked with at the UK network, and then his son Keith, of course, was part of that undefeated national championship baseball team at Madison Central that Don Richardson coached.
1982.
That's right. My first year here, and Roy was always at those games. And just an amazing family, an amazing, it's hard to say this with somebody that had as many wins as he did, but a very underrated coach, I still think. I mean.
You know who that is right there, quarterback, don't you? Burt Brown.
Oh, my God. You want to talk about one of the great characters.
Highlight against Tennessee Tech, but, you know, Coach Kidd, I did not personally know him. He retired in 2002. I was still 4 years old on television. Right. But you knew of Coach Kidd. I cannot think of another coach in this state, with the exception of a Denny Crum, Adolph Rupp, Joby Hall, Jimmy Fikes at Western, E.A. Diddle. There's a small fraternity that says Ellis Johnson, Morehead State, that screams, you say the name, you know where you're talking about, and you can rattle off memories, teams, players, moments with that coach. And I remember that guy.
I remember they had a huge, maybe it was in '82. It was shortly after I started here. They had a huge game against Murray State. This would have been in the Tukwulam, Steve Bird days.
Okay, '82 was their final year.
And they played Murray State. The game was televised nationally on TBS on a Thursday
lighting
night.
Had to come
Musco lighting brought, because EKU didn't have lights at that point. And this is the home side that you see here. But on the other side, they had that creaky place where we used to shoot games from.
Wasn't much to look at.
Wasn't much to stand in either, especially if the stadium was shaking or the wind was blowing. I mean, you thought you were coming down.
You're going to see a little view of it right there.
But that place was just absolutely electric. And it was. Obviously, there's a ton of support from the Richmond community, but people would come from all over to see his teams because they were great athletes. They were disciplined. They were fun to watch. And he was just
packed.
He was just an everyman's guy, you know. I mean, if you know, he didn't have people to do things for him, right? If he needed to go pick up a prescription or something or get something in the store, he went and did it. You know, it wasn't unusual to see him out at different places and everything. I mean, just an incredible guy, and leaves an incredible legacy of players. I think that's Steve Bird right there next to him with the headsets, who ended up coaching for him before he went to coach with Johnny Majors down at Tennessee.
Once you see that plaque, it says "a matter of pride." That is his slogan.
Yep.
I mean, when his time does come, I have a feeling on the tombstone it may just say "a matter of pride," because you see the EKU logo that has the two stripes. Those are the pride lines that he put on there in the mid-'70s, I believe it was. And he has influenced so many people. He turned down opportunities. You know, Kentucky was a possibility. Army came calling.
That's right.
In the mid-'80s. He said no. And there was talk that Louisville may, before Howard Schnellenberger started rebuilding the Cardinals program, that that Roy Kidd would be that choice. See, that's the Roy Kidd not many people got to see in later life.
Oh no, he would not be afraid to tell you. And it looks like that kid with a shirt. The
Murray shirt.
He was either playing Murray or Morehead State, but yeah, he was fiery, but he was a classy gentleman. He insisted that his teams do that as well. I mean, everybody is sad, but I mean, listen. I mean, 91 is a great run.
Yeah.
And I guess the last time I saw him personally was last fall at the Madison Central Dunbar football game. I'd heard his health had started to take a turn, but he was alert. He had that firm handshake. We chatted for quite a little while during the lightning delay, and just amazing. And so while we're all saddened by this, there is just thanks to YouTube and people like you, so many memories and everything that we have that, you know, that legacy will live on forever. And it's a great legacy for whatever you're in. I mean, as you mentioned it, to go from the high school thing and everything and all of it right there.
He took Richmond Madison to a state championship the year after they had won. They had won like 7 games over 4 years.
That Madison Central Dunbar game last year, they were actually honoring that Purple's football
1957,
team, and that's why he was there. That's exactly right.
It's also the first year of integration in the KHSAA.
That's right.
And but Roy Kidd.
Guys, people forget guys he put in the NFL. Guys,
202 players.
How about that?
I believe that's right. 202 signed NFL contracts.
At EKU.
I believe that's correct.
At EKU.
Now, obviously, not all had 10-year careers, but they signed a deal. I believe it's 202.
I think it's yes. I think you're right.
And if it's not, I apologize on the number. But as Coach Kidd, a Corbin native, they have named the street outside of Dennis Stadium for Coach Kidd. Roy and Sue Kidd, right outside of the EKU facility. You've also got, as a player, Roy Kidd was a little All-American at EKU. They did the little All-American.
That's not because he was short.
For the smaller schools of that era. And he also played center field at EKU. Hit better than hit better than 300 for 4 years. Just a Renaissance man in a lot of ways.
Oh my gosh. One of the greats.
As he is in the twilight of his life, we our thoughts and our blessings to him, his wife, his family, the EKU campus, and the Colonel Nation, the city of Richmond, and Corbin, and places in between, and the lives he touched. You have been blessed by a Hall of Famer in every sense of the word.
And dealt with some incredible coaches who were great coaches, but also some of the biggest characters in the world. Yeah. You know, from Jack Eisen to Teddy Taylor to
Jack Lingle also is the AD who was the Marshall coach. We are Marshall. That guy.
Jim Tenera, Joe Blankenship, all those guys. I could still just see them to this day, and somebody was always busting somebody about something.
Yeah, we're going to get out of here, and Buzz has got some football to talk about. So game time tonight around 11:15 or so. Thanks for
you don't want to miss it.
Thanks for those who have been watching on Facebook Live and been monitoring, and we will do this again next Friday. Buzz, I'll let you take us home.
Well, no, there is no football.
There's no football this week?
No.
I'm sorry, no football?
They played Friday, lost a tough 3-2 match to Colorado, who leads the league, but we will be back with Football Friday next week.
Okay, so there you have it. So we're going to sign off here.
Take us on out of here, Percy.
Leonard's loser. Brian Milam and Dave Baker. Let's see you all next week.